Hi guys, and welcome back to the Early Bird Photo News. We got a lot of exciting topics to cover today. Over the last week or so, Adobe's latest addition to the beta version, the generative AI fill, has been all the rave. And so today I wanted to see how useful is it actually for us nature photographers. Because I don't know about you, but me personally, I rarely feel the need to add a dinosaur to my background or a horse to a dark street or do some other sort of composite images. So I grabbed a few of my very tricky to edit images and put the new generative AI fill to the test. The first image of this lorikeet I picked because I showed you a trick on how to add canvas to the bottom in a previous video. I simply added a bit of canvas at the bottom, then used the marquee tool to select that area, and then used the move tool to drag down the canvas, and that gave me a very quick and easy way of adding canvas to the bottom. But now I wanted to see, can the generative AI fill actually add extra branches, extra flowers to the bottom and make it look good? So add a canvas again at the bottom, mark the area, clicked on generative fill and let it fill the area. And whenever you do that, Photoshop will generate a new layer with the suggestions that it generates from its AI. And then you can click through 3 different options as well. And all of this is also covered with a layer mask, so it's very easy to make adjustments to it. The results I got were surprisingly good, but at the same time, when we zoom in, we can see that they don't fully match up and that some areas are quite smooth and there's a few sort of loose branches flying around. So all in all, quite an impressive result, but not quite there. So while this result was okay, I thought, what happens if I want to add something to the left-hand side of this image, some more branches? Doing that would be very tedious and annoying to do manually. And again, it gave me a decent result, but it just got too confused with all the different branches and all the 3 results weren't quite 100% there. So for now, adding canvas in this case didn't really quite work, and my trick was just stretching out the canvas gives you a cleaner, better solution, but all in all still quite a decent result and much better than any of the other tools we had in the past, like Content Aware Fill, for instance. The next image I picked is this tricky to edit Gang cockatoo shot where a lot of grass is going right across the bird's face and the feathers. And in the past, I've cleaned this up manually with the patch tool and the clone tool, and it took me about 15 to 20 minutes to get this image perfectly fine. And so I thought if the generative AI fill can do a good job here, this would save me a lot of time going forward. And to my surprise and shock, it did a very, very good job. In the past, I tried tools like a Content Aware Fill or the new AI Remove tool, and they didn't really get the job done, but this generative AI tool was able to very quickly remove all the branches and gave me a decent result. If we zoom into 100% again, we can see that it's not perfectly fine. For instance, there's areas in the background that have noise and areas that don't have noise. Wherever the tool is doing something, it doesn't seem to kind of copy over the noise of the original file. So you have to do some more cleaning up there. And for instance, on the beak down here, there's a few areas that are not really looking fine, but then I can just simply click on the layer mask, use my brush to bring back the original, and then clean the area up with the clone tool. So knowing the basics of cloning, patch tool is very important, and then you can actually use the AI to your advantage. And if you combine all the methods, you will be able to get some fantastic results. Then I thought I'd try another image that I recently showed you where I removed a big branch going right across the 2 fairy wrens. And again, the generative AI fill did an amazing job of removing the branch. But the problem is, again, it does not add any structure or noise to the image. So if we zoom into the bird's tail, for instance, we see there's just a random smooth area now instead of having any feather detail. So this is an area that you would have to manually work on then to have the image not look strange. And the same happens where the 2 branches intersected. They're just randomly smooth. So you also have to do some more manual work there. But overall, again, this would make it quite easy to quickly remove a branch and then just manually use the clone tool to fix the areas that the tool kind of doesn't really get right. Where the generative fill seems to be very good is adding dubious amounts of canvas to landscape photos. So I grabbed one of my Cape Barren geese images and thought I'd just make this more of like a coastal panoramic shot, trying to add more to the left and the right. And so I added the canvas and then selected the 2 areas and clicked the generative fill and let it fill without any instruction. And look at that. It did a pretty amazing job, didn't it? When we zoom in again, we can see that the areas still stand out a little bit because the transition between the old grass and like the new grass and the plants is a little bit too smooth, but with a little bit of tidying up, I think you can get a perfect result there. And of course, this isn't exactly the landscape that was there, but I think for a quick addition, if you just wanted a wider file, this is quite a tremendous result, and I was very impressed with that. Next, I thought, why don't we add a few flying birds to the sky, like a just sort of silhouetted flock of birds. So I tried 6 different times, 6 different commands, but it was not able to generate a decent looking flying bird. Most of the birds actually ended up looking like moustaches or some other weird sort of creation, but nothing what I had really in mind. So interestingly, with flying birds, it really seems to struggle. So while there's still a lot of room for improvements, I think this will inevitably change photo editing forever and make it a lot easier in certain cases. Especially removing certain things will be made much easier, and this is a welcome addition for me because it can save me a lot of time when editing in a digital darkroom. I know some people will love it, some people will hate it, but when it comes to the sort of notion of fake images, I think they've always been around, and it comes to us as photographers to stay honest and not feel the need to add just crazy random things to our images or make all skies look amazing now or things like that. So if we stick to our own sort of guts and basics, I think this will be fine and a great helper going forward. However, it will not negate learning the basics of Photoshop, getting the colors right and making your own images look amazing, because these tools will be great helpers, but they don't negate knowing the basics, because only when you know the basics, you will be able to get the most out of your images and make them actually look the way you want them to look. And this is why I would love to help you with my masterclass and Pro Sets. With my Pro Sets, I allow you with just one click to transform your raw files into a great looking starting point with great colors. And in my masterclass, I teach you step by step all the Photoshop basics you need to know when it comes to getting the colors right, making your images look amazing, and everything else you need to know around Photoshop and getting the most out of your images. So if that's of interest to you, make sure to check this out down there in the description. Before we move on, there's a few little more warnings I want to give you when you think about installing the beta version of Photoshop to try out the new tools. I had a lot of issues once I installed it on my M1 Max MacBook Pro because it made the original Photoshop version a lot more buggy. For instance, the other day, the normal Photoshop version wouldn't save any files anymore. There seems to be a lot of sort of conflicts when you run the two versions at the same time on the same computer. It's fun to try out, but there's definitely more bugs between the two programs if you have them both open or run them both on the same computer, even if they're not open at the same time. What are you guys' thoughts on the whole generative AI fill? It's kind of crazy, isn't it? And by the way, I also tried to add a lot more canvas at the bottom to this Gengen cockatouche image, and that didn't work at all. If you haven't watched my Z8 review yet, I suggest that you do that after watching this video. I've had a lot of fun with it in the field, using it for 2 weeks straight, taking over 35,000 images, mainly with that awesome 600mm TC lens. I photographed a lot of cool birds with it. I ran into some autofocus issues, but I also found some solutions that allowed me to take some great looking osprey images in the end. Overall, a very interesting camera, and I'm thinking about doing a setup video for it because it's quite important to get the settings right to get the most out of that camera. Since the batteries on the Z8 didn't last super long, I had to charge them on the road a lot while driving between different spots, and this is where my new EcoFlow River 2 came in very handy that I showed you in a recent video, because I could simply plug in the charger with the battery, and while I was driving to the new spot, the battery was almost fully charged. I was very impressed how that worked in the car and allowed me to always have a charged up battery when I needed it. Speaking about the Z8, I think most of you have already received yours, or are you still waiting on yours? Nikon's latest lenses with the built-in teleconverters like the 400 and 600mm lens that I love myself as well have been the talk of the town for a little while now, and a lot of us Canon users have been asking ourselves, when will Canon give us prime lenses or zoom lenses with built-in teleconverters? And it seems like the likely answer will be never. But before we get too disappointed, it sounds like Canon might actually be working on a different solution that might actually be even better in the end. Because instead of dealing with these two external teleconverters, according to Canon rumors, Canon is actually working on building some sort of unit that combines the 1.4 extender and the 2x extender, and also has an option to kind of have no extender activated at all. And to me, that sounds very interesting. If we have some sort of device that you can put in front of your big prime lens that lets you select a 1.4 extender, no extender, or 2x extender, I think that would be pretty amazing and might actually be a better solution than a built-in 1.4 extender. Because if you have a built-in 1.4 extender, you still need to carry an external 2x extender with you in the field as well. The advantage of a separate unit would also be that if you don't need an extender and just want to use the bare lens, you don't have the added weight of a built-in extender in the lens that you always have to carry around with you. So I think if Canon can build a device with great image quality that has both of the extenders that allows us to enable it when needed and take it off when not needed, is quite genius, and I think that would be something I would be very excited about. Of course, the price would likely be crazy. If we go by these two extenders that cost like $600-700, a new device that includes both of these extenders would very likely be between $1,000 and $2,000, but if it works well, I think it would definitely be worth it. What do you guys think? I think this is actually a genius idea, and I also wonder if this might actually be the rumored third zoom lens I've been talking about for a while, because we've already seen the 100-300mm lens, we'll likely see the 200-500mm lens, and maybe that third lens, we didn't know what it is actually this new sort of teleconverter unit that Canon will be bringing out at some point this year or later as well. Looks like on July 12th, after more than 4-year wait, we'll finally see a new Sony APS-C camera, which is quite exciting because I think if they are able to bring out a nice and well-working APS-C camera, they could be on to a winner, especially in combination with that 200-600mm lens for us nature photographers. The rumored A6700 will have a 26 megapixel sensor, the same that you can also see in the FX30, and it will have the new AI processing unit, which hopefully means it will have fantastic eye tracking and photo and video mode for things like birds, animals, trains, and whatever else we want. On top of that, it will also have IBIS, record up to 6K 30p and 4K 120p that will be added with a firmware update at a later stage. So we'll also seem to be able to do some video, although it sounds like it will have some sort of crop factor, at least with the 4K 120, for instance, of 1.19. Besides that, we will also get a 3.69 million dot EVF, which is adequate, I suppose, and 2 SD card slots. So all in all, a pretty interesting sounding camera that should be quite interesting for many Sony users. What do you guys think? Is this something you would be interested in? I think spec-wise, it definitely competes well with the Canon R7, for instance, and should sit in a similar price range, even though I've heard that it might be as high as $2,000. So I'm going to go ahead now, edit this video and the next bird photography show I'm going to be posting on the weekend, where we use the camera system that we've never used before. So stay tuned for that. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments. Give me a thumbs up and I will see you in the next video very soon. Bye. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. See ya.